Well, today is the 300th episode of Unscripted with Spencer Lodge. This has been a long journey, but one that I've enjoyed deeply over the years. But for an episode like this, we better have a special guest, and we've got one for you today. Let's go find out who it is.
Welcome, Ant Middleton!
Ant Middleton.
Ant Middleton.
Ant Middleton.
Special Forces hero Ant Middleton.
Please welcome Mr. Ant Middleton.
My life has been one big trial and error. I'm not scared to fail. I'm not worried about success.
Ant is known for his extreme adventures and mental resilience.
And that's what I chased when I left the military. It wasn't adrenaline. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I chased that euphoria of being at ultimate peace with myself. Talking about my dad, it's just led me into pain and a bit of suffering.
Let's cue the music, because I am so happy that Ant agreed to come on the show and share his story so that you can learn all of the great things about Ant, like I have felt for many years. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. Episode 300. I can't believe I'm even saying that out loud. Here we are 6 years down the road with 300 episodes that we've produced. And I just want to say a big thank you to you for staying with me on that journey. And I hope I've brought some value to you along the way with the fascinating guests that we've had. It's been an absolute privilege serving you, and I hope to do it for many more years to come, because secretly, out of all of the things I do with my time as an entrepreneur, this is the bit I love the most. Now, today's guest, well, it had to be a special one, didn't it? Please welcome Mr. Ant Middleton. Ant is known for his extreme adventures and mental resilience, but his journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From joining the UK's elite forces at 16 years old to becoming the chief instructor on SAS Who Dares Wins, Ant's journey is inspiring. He starred in hit shows like Mutiny and Extreme Everest and conquered K2 in 2022. His Head Game podcast consistently tops the charts, featuring inspiring stories of resilience and fortitude. And as an accomplished author, he's sold over 2.3 million copies of his books worldwide, including First Man In, The Fear Bubble, and They Motivate Millions. Join us as we explore Ant's incredible journey, his passion for adventure, his commitment to overcoming life's obstacles, but also his absolute dedication to the most important thing in his life, and that's his beautiful family with 4 kids. Let's cue the music, because I am so happy that Ant agreed to come on the show and share his story so that you can learn all of the great things about Ant, like I have felt for many years. So let's talk about the megaverse, the internet of people. Shaping the next iteration of the internet, Megaverse is powered by revolutionary blockchain technology built on decentralized community ownership. It offers users, brands, and businesses a seamless, regulated, and transparent opportunity for growth, revenue, and community building. Megaverse is accelerating user adoption and achieving these goals through multiple verticals like Megachain, a high-performance blockchain for tamper-proof transactions, Megafile system for encrypted decentralized storage, and Mega Studio, which democratizes development through collaborative and AI elements. Organizations across industries like Dubai Multi-Commodities Center, Dubai World Trade Center, and Ras Al Khaimah government have already explored the lucrative potential of a Megaverse presence. Megaverse enables users to create a Web3 future for the people, where technology serves human purposes. Dive in and discover the Internet of People with Megaverse today. Ant Middleton.
Spence.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming. This is our 300th episode, and to have a guest like you on the show, and although we've met previously, it's an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much.
That's an honour, mate. 300, my lucky number. Do things by threes. So when this came up, I was like, do you know what? I'm going to do it.
It's my stepfather's birthday today. He's 79 years old on the 3rd of June. And we just got a call from my youngest daughter, who just passed her driving test on the 4th attempt as well today. So today's
we've been better on the 3rd attempt, but
yeah. Now, you're so famous around the world for something specific. Okay. And that's a world that most of us don't live in, never lived in, and kind of wrap fantasy around.
Yeah.
Unless there is an actual war.
True. Yeah.
And so when there's a war, it all becomes a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit real. And like what we have with Ukraine and Russia right now, and Israel and Palestine, it's all a bit close to home. But when that kind of stuff's not going on, it's romanticized. Movies are made, and we think about people that are in the military as being these kind of like super hard, smart guys that are prepared, get people around the neck and break their necks as they kill them, all this kind of stuff. And it's fascinating for me how we kind of like hold that image in our mind.
Super hard, but maybe not smart. That's what.
So I look at this and I'm like, I've consumed a lot of your content. I've read your books. I've watched the TV shows. And then I got to meet you on a boat a little while ago with a mutual friend of ours. And first of all, the question I have is, how on earth did you get such a good-looking family? What happened there? Because they're beautiful.
You know what? It was one of those, everyone thinks I'm at it, like a rabbit with my wife, but I only have to look at my wife and she's pregnant. So, we've had 4 beautiful kids together. And yeah, they look like their mum. That's all I can say.
But they're so well-mannered and lovely. It was a pleasure spending time with them.
Yeah, do you know what? That's what I implement as a father is respect. Respect your elders, respect someone until they prove to you that they don't warrant your respect. Or and manners. Manners will get you somewhere rather than nowhere. So use them. That's what I say to my children. And also, from a young age, anytime anyone came around the house, I would say, I don't care what you're doing, you stop what you're doing, you come down, you introduce yourself and you ask a question. I said, once you've done that, go back up to your room, go and do what you need to do or whatever you were doing, but that's what you do. And from a young age, ding dong, door would ring, come down, hey, it might be grandpa, it might be a friend, they come down, hi, how you doing? Right, question asked, hold eye contact and away they go. And it's something that I'm on top of them always. Please, thank you. Even if people are rude to you, I said, that's their problem, not your problem. Don't ever be rude because it won't get you anywhere. That's a negative on a negative, just leave it alone. And it's worked for me throughout life, Spence. I've always been polite, I've always been respectful. And I find that that gets you through a certain door where people like to be around you. They know that they can trust being around you and that you won't make a fool of them and yourselves. So it's something that I install into my children, I install into myself. I'm always questioning myself when I'm talking as well, making sure that I say please, thank you, and that I'm respectful. And at the end of the day, it's not for me to change who I am because someone else is being rude or someone else isn't respectful. I'll always be respectful and I'll always be polite.
Talk to me about fatherhood. Do you think that fathers should be fathers, or do you think they should be friends? Fathers,
definitely fathers. Be a father before a friend, because that's your role, that's your job. Your job is to nurture, to protect, to not necessarily overprotect, but it's a case of you want your children to do better than yourself. And you can't say that for many other people. You look at other people, there's always that competition. There's always, right, I could do better or I can be better. Well, with your children, you're almost training them to supersede you. You're training them to become a better version of who you are within themselves. So fatherhood is something that you figure out on the move. As long as you have got their best intentions all of the time at heart, then, is it wrong? Is it right? What you're doing? It was the same with my children. I pushed them to an extent where they trip up. I put the rope out. I put the traps out for them to trip up. I don't put enough rope for them to hang themselves, for them to fail, harshly. But I put the rope out so they trip up and they graze their knee, metaphorically. Yeah. They get back up, right, I'm not going to go there down that route again. I'm not going to attack that angle. I'm going to figure it out myself. And I do that out of love. I do that out of pure love because I want what's best for my children. I try and prepare them as much as I can. And and not go through what I've gone through, because my life has been one big trial and error. You know, I'm not scared to fail. I'm not worried about success, but that's inconsistent. It can be too inconsistent in life, and you learn later through life to make the right decisions. But I wanted to start thinking right now. So fatherhood is something for me. It's a lifelong process. It never ends, right? You're hopefully going to be a father until the day you die. That title never gets stripped of you. You know, you've got that responsibility. And when you look at it in its entirety like that, when you look at it in the longevity of being a father, I think it really sinks in. And it's something that you go, right, listen, I've got my work cut out for life.
I look at your responsibility as a father, then I listen to you in your books, and I see you as a very kind of like practical thinker. And it almost feels like there's not so much emotion in those practical thoughts, because you're the practical guy, this sense of responsibility and stuff. But when you think about being a kid yourself, you know, you were down in Portsmouth, I think, and then, you know, your father passed away, and then mum moved very quickly on to somebody else, and you moved to France.
That's right, yeah.
I never knew where in France you were. Where were you?
Normandy.
In Normandy.
In La Manche.
Okay. So you moved, which is a part
north of France.
Yeah, I've said it's a part of France which I'm sure isn't full of tourists and stuff.
Nothing goes on there. Nothing
quiet there, yeah.
Really quiet.
So what did it feel like? Because I went to a foreign country when I was a kid as well, but what did it feel like for you turning up at this different country when all you'd known is you could walk down the street and someone would say hello to you, and you didn't speak French when you arrived, did you?
No, it was confusing. I remember being confused. I remember feeling lost. But I couldn't talk to anyone. It was a case of when my father passed, his name was taken out of the equation straight away. We changed our names straight away. My surname to Middleton took on my stepfather's name. So we were desensitized at the age of 5. I was desensitized at the age of 5 or 6. So I did go through a part of my life, and up to recently, of, you know, hiding my emotions, you know, really not utilizing them, being afraid to utilize them because they'd been sort of cut off from such a young age. I didn't really know how to use emotion, to be fair, but that worked for me throughout life. You know, I still really don't know how to use emotion. I'm getting better at it, but it was one of those where it was cut off, which allowed me to be the best at what I wanted to do when I went into combat. I was so desensitized, not in a uncompassionate type of way or a non-empathetic type of way, but in a way where I could just get on with my job. What's done is done, and move on. And that's true to life of everything that I do, whether I scaled Mount Everest, K2, Mutiny on the Bounty. Reenacted the Mutiny on the Bounty from 1789 with Captain William Bligh. And even when I was in combat and on tours, that emotion just wasn't present, which really, really served me well. So when I look back at that situation at such a young age, it actually worked to my advantage with the field that I took. And I don't know if I went down that route because of that. You know, when I joined the army, I didn't want to join the army. I just joined the army because I didn't get any grades at school. I wanted to move back to the UK. I was in France. So it's a great way of just being self-sufficient, joining the army, being active, you know, with all the assault courses and all the, you know, parachute jumps. That's really what engaged me to join. But also, you know, earning a small wage, being fed, having a roof over my head. I could sort of be self-sustainable and go along with things, but I just really started to enjoy it.
I want to try and dig into this a little bit. So when you think about being in France, you're saying you were desensitized. When you say desensitized, you've got a mum that loves you, I'm assuming. She was kind and whatnot. Yeah. You was a little boy, and so that was all cool. So where was this desensitization from?
Not being able to ask the questions that were triggered by emotions.
About your dad?
About my dad, yeah. So I always say...
You weren't allowed to?
No.
Or when you asked, there was just no answer?
No, we just don't talk about him. You've got a new dad now. That's the first couple of conversations went that way, to the point where we couldn't mention my father's name. Peter was his name. We couldn't mention his name because we knew there'd be some serious repercussions if we did.
And that was from mum or stepdad?
Both, but initiated from stepdad.
Were you scared of your stepdad?
Yeah.
And was he a bully, or was he just a bad drunk, or what kind of person was he?
He was just a violent man, really, and not in a way where, I say not in a way, but back in those days in that era, you'd get a good hide and you'd know about it. You get
The belt.
Yeah, it's the belt, beating around, and to the point where you'd know just to stay on the good side. That's what it was. It was like, what side do I choose? Well, I've only got one option, really, because when I tried to go down one route and one side, which is talking about my dad, it's just led me into pain and a bit of suffering. So why would I do that? I suppose as a child, you're easily molded, right? And that's why fatherhood for me is so important. People say, yeah, you get it right or wrong. It's like you should try and get it right every single time. There's no, you get things right and you get things wrong. It's like, no. In your heart of hearts, you should try and get things right every single time. And if you've got that child's best interest at heart, then that decision will the majority be the right thing to do, or the right, they might not understand it at the time. But when you're juggling things and you're doing it through fear, then you're gonna get one answer every single time. Oh, yeah, yes, Dad. Yes, sorry, Dad. Yeah, no worries, Dad. And you look into that child's eye and you're like, they don't. I never want to rule like that. And I know sometimes my children, and it breaks my heart when I raise my voice sometimes and I see the fear in them. And I never raise my voice to my children ever. I've done it once or twice, just to really, But then I see the fear in their eyes, and I'm just like, it doesn't work. It's not how you should be a father. It's not, there should be an element, not of fear, but there should be an element of precaution where they go, all right, Dad's, don't want to get on the wrong side of Dad because, that's being lippy to mum, or, being cheeky or being disrespectful. You've got to pull it into line. But I like to just sit my children down. And that's through the experience that I went through. And I suppose that's what we do as a father. We do the things that we like. We implement the things that we like as a child, and the things that we don't, we reverse them. So, and then your child would do the same. My children would do the same as when they're father. They take on what they really liked and use that with their family, and then they flip the things they didn't like to try and make things right. So, yeah. So it was hard. But I had my brothers, and I
were they scared?
3 brothers. Yeah, we always used to stick together. We done everything together. We ran away from my stepdad together. We would protect each other. We knew not to say stuff around my mum and my stepfather. And my mum was so protective, so loving, to the point where the overprotection of keeping us, away from what happened, and from repercussions of my stepfather as well. It got to a stage where I could see that she was a bit on edge sometimes. And but you just get on with life, don't you? We're in the middle of France, in the middle of nowhere. And when I look back at those situations, the one thing that it did give me, which I can only thank my father for when I look back at his passing, is, he made me self-reflect at the age of 5. So when I wanted to ask these questions and I knew I couldn't, I asked them to myself. I remember sitting in a den at the end of my garden at the age of 5, 6 years old, asking myself, where's my dad? And I can't ask that question and then I can answer them myself. So I started asking myself these questions. I used to think, don't worry what's going on in the outside world. You're not going to get the answers you want. I asked, why are you feeling sad? I'm feeling sad because my dad passed away. Well, that's normal. And just have these conversations to myself. And sometimes you'd be really low and I'd be, why am I low? Why am I feeling low? That's because I miss my dad. Oh, right. So that's normal. I was self-reflecting like that and almost answering my own questions.
So, were you having those conversations with your brothers as well?
No.
Not even you brothers talk about it?
No, we didn't even talk about it.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you were off just mucking about together as 4 kids?
Yeah. I can remember just a small period of time where we spoke about it and it was nipped in the bud straight away. So it was a small, tiny period of time and it's just like, boom, boom, but then never speak about it again. And then through growing up, all through our childhood, we never mentioned it once. We're just like, it wasn't a subject to ever be risen. Or
You've been around the world, have you met anyone else that went through something similar?
Do you know what? You hear about people losing their parents at a young age, but no, we were quite, I don't know, quite a unique case, right? And then it all starts to make sense, and you go, right, why did we move to France in the middle of nowhere? I went to a Catholic school, and it was run by a Catholic church. Not one English person had been there, so they chucked me into this Catholic school. And again, not wrong or not the right decision to do, but within 3 months, I picked up the language. Picked up really, really quick because no one could speak the language. No one even knew. We were like, I remember the first day at school where all the kids were surrounding me and my brothers, and they're like, who are these aliens? Who are these people? And then you start to just mold into whatever environment that you're part of. And then that's a huge thing.
Did you actively pursue or do things to try and make your stepfather happy?
Yeah.
What was it that you would do? Was there certain sports or certain activities?
Sports, he was very, very competitive. We played football every night. We had a big field in the back of our garden where we set up, football goals, and we'd go out and play every night. But when I look back on it, everything was done just in our bubble. We rarely ventured out of our bubble. And you look at it, and we were so isolated and kept in that bubble that we didn't need to ask questions, really. It was bizarre. But yeah, we, really wanted to please your stepdad. I think you want to please your parents anyway. It's not,
Yeah, but pleasing your parents, watching one of your kids please you, I'm sure is a much different scenario than you trying to please someone you're scared of.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah.
What industries or careers did your brothers go into?
So I was the first one to leave the nest. So I've got 2 older brothers, 2 younger brothers, and a younger sister. I left the nest first, and that initiated a spark with the others. So I joined the army a year later. My brother, who's 2 years older than me, the second eldest, he joined the RAF. He sort of saw the route, and he was like, and then, which initiated with my younger brother, who then moved to Australia because he has an Australian and a British passport. Because I lived in Perth from the ages of 1 till 3 when I was little, because my dad was a computer engineer, and he had a posting in Australia for IBM. So we all moved out there. Then my brother was born. So once he had his Australian and UK passport, and that's when things started to sort of really make sense on who I was. I was born Anthony Aaron. My father was born Anthony Askilevich. My granddad Polish. My grandmother's Irish. And the Polish side was really, really present in my dad's side. So, we used to go see my granddad every weekend. Anthony Askilevich, his name was. My dad was Peter Askilevich. He changed his name when he moved to Australia to Anthony Aaron, just for ease with his children, because Askilevich, he said it wouldn't get a job. Yeah, it's a complicated name, wasn't getting the jobs that he deserved. And when he changed his name to Aaron, and he always joked around saying he wanted to be the first one on the phone book. So when he went into the double A, right? So I was obviously born Anthony Aaron, but originally Askilevich, and then having our names changed to Middleton was something that when I joined the army, and they said, well, your name's Anthony Aaron, you haven't even got a deed poll. How did you get it on your passport? We're talking 80s, 90s, where things were just done. And then you start to ask, you go, wow, I've been here, there, and and then I officially changed my name before I joined the army, because I had to. So that was another, I was like, wow, then I started to ask a few questions, and but it is what it is at the end of the day, and it's made me the man I am today. But yeah, my brothers are all over the world. So I've got a brother in France, I've got a brother in Australia, a brother in the UK. I'm now in Dubai. And my brothers have some of them have changed their name back to Aaron. It's complicated, mate. It's complicated. But yeah, I've got a beautiful family now, and there's a stickler between carrying on the Middleton name, but my kids are happy, I'm happy, and yeah, we'll take on that name and push it forward.
And the kids have got lots of cousins?
The kids have got lots of cousins, yeah. The kids have got, you know what, we come from a big family, we've created a big family, and and it brings lots of joy and lots of memories and, lots of happiness, so...
I can see that for sure when I was around you. Talk to me about getting into the army, because I find that one half of my family are military and one other half are not, and they all joined the army in the military in various forms. If you go back my family line, my grandfather was at Dunkirk and all of this kind of stuff. So we've got this military roots, and every one of them when they joined, my cousins when they joined and they went in when they were 16 years old, okay, and they were like, what are you doing with your life? Come and join the army. This is so much fun. They had just they just loved it. And they were like, I'm an HGV license now.
Yeah, of course. I've got a trade.
I'm an electrician. I'm doing all these different things, and I know, whatever happens, I'll be good. And most of them stayed in there many more years than I thought they would. Some of them stayed in there till into their 40s as well. When people think about joining the army, what is the great benefit of somebody going and becoming part of this infrastructure that's been built around our nation?
You feel part of a family. They not entice you in, but because you're a volunteer, but you're in there, and again the molding process starts straight away. You go through training, you're only allowed home certain weekends. In my days, they give you a little bit of cash to go, not enough to really mix, but just go home and get trained to go home and come back and then continue training. And the reason why I loved it so much was because it just felt like another family to me, and I was very institutionalized in that way from my upbringing anyway. It's just a small family unit, boom. And then this felt like a bigger family unit, but a more exciting one, and one where I could be myself, I could find myself and really, jump out and discover who I was, I suppose. And it was a journey that initially I didn't enjoy. I felt like I felt like I wanted to be free from such a disciplined ball that I had back in France. And it just felt that ball was just bigger, but it was the same feeling. People were telling me what to do. People were, even though I reacted well to people telling me what to do and people shouting at me, and I reacted really well to that. If someone shouted at me through training, I'd make sure I was at the front. I'd make sure I was number one, and that's what I'd done from day dot. When the drill instructors, when the corporals and the sergeants are shouting at you, I reacted well to it because I reacted well to it at home. So that's how I found myself being good at what I wanted to do, but not enjoying it. So it was a double-edged sword for me. It was just like, right, I want to be myself. I want to be my own individual. But now I'm being molded into doing this and into doing that, and some of the stuff that I didn't agree with, there would be repercussions for it. You had to conform. You had to be one of the lads. You had to, tackle life in that way and be that person in order to fit in, and then to make life easy for yourself. But then as I was getting older, early 20s, it just didn't sit well with me. And I thought to myself, I love the military. I do love the military, but the army wasn't for me. So that's why I decided to leave the army and join the Marines, because I found out about the Marines that was more mature and that you could be yourself a bit more. And once you got your green beret, you're an elite fighting force. So that's why I decided to do the transition from the army to the Marines, because I smashed the beginning of my army career. Best recruit, best PT, went to my unit, done P company, one of the hardest sort of elite military courses in the army. Done my jumps course, went and done my parachute training, got my parachute wings. And then, from then onwards, there wasn't much going on, in the...
So what year was that when you were 20?
97, 98, 99. So that's when I joined, late 90s, basically. From 97 to 2002. and there wasn't anything going on.
Yes, you missed out on the Falklands.
Yes.
You missed out on Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
And what happened there, Bosnia and whatnot.
Bosnia, Kosovo, even Bosnia and Kosovo, you know, you're looking at the tours of duty that I've done in Afghanistan, they, you know, that they were playground stuff, you know, but they were big back then, you know. But yeah, the Falklands, you know, since the Falklands, we'd done nothing. And playing soldiers to me was really strange. That's all we'd done. We trained and then we'd go out and drink on the weekend. We'd do courses and, you know, there wasn't a battlefield to be able to vent and to really put into practice what you're doing. It's like playing, you know, Premier League football, you know, it's all well and good training, but if you're not making the finals or the quarterfinals or the semi-finals or the cup final, then you feel like you're just going through the motions. And that, I got very bored of that. So when that started to happen, then I just started to lose interest. And then I was like, right, leave the army. And then Iraq and Afghanistan kicked off. And that was like, right, let's go back in. If I join the Marines, I know for a fact that I'm going to go straight out to Afghanistan. And did that
excite you or scare you or both?
Yeah. At that point, no, it excited me because I knew what I was capable of, but I didn't have the opportunity to prove it. That's what it was. And I thought to myself, and I knew a lot of the sort of pub soldiers, you know, the good soldiers in the army that, you know, were good on exercise and would go down the pub and talk a good game. When they were leaving when Iraq and Afghanistan kicked off. And that just told me, right, you know, it almost egged me on even more. I thought, you know what, I'm not only gonna rejoin, but I'm gonna rejoin the Royal Marines. You know, I've done the airborne side of things. I've got my Maroon Beret, I've got my parachute wings. I'm gonna go and get my Green Beret. And I know for a fact I'm gonna go straight out to Afghanistan.
So what was it like the first time you go into battle? You've never been into battle before, you've trained, but when you first go into battle and it's real and there's no messing around and people die and stuff like that, what was that first exposure for you like?
Exciting. Yeah. Scary, but exciting. But I wasn't scared of dying. I wasn't scared of seeing people, you know, in that way because I was desensitized from it when I look back at it. You know, it was okay. And even with myself, it's like, you know, if it happens, it happens. It's, you know, but I never went into combat thinking like that. You know, I knew I was extremely good at my job and I knew that I wanted to prove ultimately to myself that I was this soldier that I thought I was, that other people didn't think I was, you know, and it was a combination of multiple things of, you know, proving to other people, proving to myself, and being desensitized emotionally just pushed me forward. It was a case of, you know, when I felt fear, and I explain it in one of my books, The Fear Bubble, when I felt fear, it was a sense of excitement. And I can just remember my body's going, get ready, get ready, get ready. That's what I say to people. Fear is your body priming itself to step into the unknown. That's what it is. Because when you step into the unknown, it's an exciting place to be because you've not been there before. Now, what am I going to learn? What am I going to pick up? Where am I? You know, it's super exciting, almost jumping into the deep end, you know, with dive boots on. It's like, how am I going to tread water? How am I going to you have to figure it out. And that's what I've done all my life. I've figured out things by myself, by being thrown in the deep end. And this was like this on a huge scale. It's like, right, yeah, I know the operation I'm going on, especially within the Special Boat Service, the Special Forces. We were hunting down, you know, high value targets. We weren't going around patrolling around, you know, waiting to get hit. We were, you know, going on proper tier 1 operations. You know,
so you'd go on one of these missions. How long would a mission last? Would it be days or weeks or what?
It depends. Sometimes it lasted. The ideal mission for a high value target is you identify where they are. You go on. It's called a hard arrest mission, kill or capture, basically. The idea is to capture them to get information, so you can put it through the network to prevent a bigger, you know, catastrophe from happening. Let's say. But with these HVTs, they're always heavily armed, and it never goes, or rarely does it go down the capture route. So you know you're in for it. But the beautiful thing about it is your senses are so heightened. It passes adrenaline. it's heightened to a euphoric stage. So people think I'm an adrenaline junkie. And at first it was, adrenaline got me through the door. But when you're doing it constantly, and your senses are heightened that much that you know exactly what I'm going to be thinking at this moment, exactly how in tune they are, in perfect harmony with yourself, it flips over to euphoria. You feel like a sense of ultimate peace for those few seconds. So at first it was adrenaline. I kicked down my first 10, 15 doors, for example. Adrenaline got me through, my training got me through, the lads, bang, bang on the shoulder, get through the door, room clear. Right, I'm breathing it in, right, we've got to go. Room's clear now, compose yourself. We've got to take on 4 or 5 more buildings, potentially the next compound if it kicks off. So adrenaline gets you through and you finish and you're done. But then once you learn how to harness adrenaline, and like I said, I used to get to a door and I used to, almost an out-of-body experience. I knew exactly what was going to happen. You know, I knew I'd go through that door, the way I moved, the way that I knew I'd be okay. I knew I had the team behind me. And it's for a few seconds, you go through the door, room clear. It literally lasts 3 or 4 or 5 seconds maybe. But then once you learn how to harness that adrenaline and make it work for you, it turns into euphoria. And what I mean by that, you're at ultimate peace with yourself. Because you go through that door and there's going to be 2 options. You're either going to make it through or you're going to not make it through. You're going to die. But if you die, you're not going to know about it. You're walking that line of life and death. There's no complications between that line. There's no distractions. There's no BS. There's no, you've got bills to pay. You know, you've got this person. You got, you know, your dishwasher's broken. It's so uncomplicated. It's the purest form of life when you walk that line of life and death. Purest form of life. And once you walk it multiple times, and I'm talking 10, 20, 30, 40 times, then you start to realize why every single vein, every single artery, every single bone in your body is designed the way it is to work in perfect harmony with itself. And when it does that for a few seconds, it's so peaceful. And I understood why poets from World War I and World War II would write these beautiful poems in the trenches, because I got that. And I used to think, well, how can you write a poem in a trench? You know, how can you write something so pure and beautiful in a trench? And it's because they're at complete peace with themselves. There's no complication. There's nothing in between that line. It's like, if I make it through, I'll make it through. If I don't, guess what? I'm not going to know about it. And that's the approach I took. And that's what I chased when I left the military. It wasn't adrenaline. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I chased that euphoria of being at ultimate peace with myself.
How did you become famous?
Became famous through a TV program called SAS, Who Dares Wins. And again, it's something that fell on my lap. I didn't go looking for it. It was...
There's thousands of people in the military, hundreds of people in the SBS. Why you?
I think because of the way I connect emotionally with people and the way that I can connect psychologically as well, energy. You know, I've got this pure positive outlook on life, and knowing that, you know, life isn't always positive, but I don't think about the negatives. I don't think about the worst case scenarios. Now, when I plan, I never think about worst case scenario. I never think what could go wrong. You know, and people say, oh, that's bad planning. I'm like, no, I'll tackle that when it comes. Because worst case scenario, the negatives in something, it's a case of when you do hit it, yeah, you can sort of reel, but in that moment you have too many opportunities. Your mind overthinks, it's overstimulated and overthinking. But when you hit something, when you hit a problem and you're already committed to it and you've got one option and it's to find a way through, over or around it, then you'll be amazed at what you achieve within that moment. So I think people can relate to me because I am emotional. Believe it or not, I'm super emotionally intelligent, but it's through a connection, through energy. It's an energy thing. I just know when someone is not right. I know when something's not right. You know, I've got a great intuition. Again, that comes from my childhood and figuring things out from such a young age. But I think it's just being real. I think I'm touchable, you know, as in people can, I'm a celebrity or someone in the line like that people can touch, because I just say it how it is through what I've been through. I'm not a bookworm. I'm not an academic. I haven't studied psychology. I haven't done it, but with the emotions that I've exposed and breaking them down, going back and breaking them down, and the mindset that I use to get through these situations and coming out unscathed is where my superpowers lie, let's say. And this is why with SAS, for example, why I'm still doing it 10 years later in Australia and, looking to bring it elsewhere in the region, is because I go through that process with them. If you look at SAS, whether it's a SAS Australia or SAS Who Dares Wins, I'm fully committed to the process. I go through everything with the recruits. And if you ask any of the recruits about the experience they have with me, they know that I go through that process with them. Because when I go through that process with them and I'm present with them, I know how far I can push them. I know if I can push them a little bit further, or I need to rein it in a little bit. Now try and do that from a production standpoint, from a scripted standpoint. It becomes dangerous. You can't go to those lengths or to those boundaries from behind a screen. You have to be present with that. And when you see the raw emotions from people on the show, it's because I've identified them in the moment. That's not scripted. But someone doesn't come up to me and go, talk about this. They've had a hard life. It's like I've identified something in that moment because I'm present with them. I'm like, wow, I've seen a little glint in their eye. I've seen a little pause. I've seen something. I've seen something. And I go, right, this is stopping you from achieving or becoming the best version of yourself.
So for anybody that hasn't seen the show, let's just give this context, because I'm literally in that moment with you. You take 10?
20 to 25.
So just to give this context, 25 people come to you to go on a show. Some of them have got something to prove. Some of them have got something to find, I suppose, as well. And the first episode or the first series, they won't have known because they won't have had anything to watch. But thereafter, people have got something to watch. Mm-hmm. And I've watched it. Mm-hmm. And it's the moments where you put them in that room where you take the balaclava off the head or the bag off the head and you sit them there, that I want to watch you and you're having that conversation. And before you've had the conversation, there's 2 or 3 of you chatting and you're looking at their pictures on a wall and you're like, there's something about him, or what's a
something
story?
That I've seen in the day from a task. The tasks aren't just tasks. I don't care how big the tasks are. They mean nothing to me, right? You're going to get a good visual. You're going to get a huge mountain. You're going to get a good drone shot. You're going to get beautiful visuals, and you're going to get a little moment where they look down and go, it's that moment I know is going to come. It's what I see when they're watching, when they're sitting down, the way they are, the way they're asking questions, the way they're going into themselves. That's what I take, and I go, right, bang, I'm gonna use that when I get back to camp, or I might use it in the moment whilst they're sat there. You see some of it when they're actually halfway during the task. I intervene because I've seen something that I need to get in there. That's where not the TV gold comes from, but that's where the gold comes from, where people can relate to it, because I guarantee you they're sitting on their couch and they're thinking exactly the same, and it rings a bell. It just rings true to them. And that's the powerful product of the show. You're playing with people's emotions and their headspace that can never be mistrusted or misguided. I've got people's emotions in my hands. They're putting their full trust into me. I've got people's mindsets in my hands, and I will push it to a certain extent. But the moment you mistrust that or misguide it, or there's a narrative behind the scenes that's when it becomes dangerous, right? Because that's where emotional damage comes from, psychological damage comes from. It's like, because we're pushing these guys to the extremes, not to a boundary, to the extreme, beyond anything they've ever experienced before. So it's such a unique show, and it shows when it's scripted, when the production have taken over, and it shows when it's authentic. And there's loads of scripted shows out there. Go and do a scripted show if you want to do that. But the authenticity, that's what people love, is the rawness, the realness, and the authenticity of how we function as as humans. We're going to get people that got egos. We're going to get people that are scared of heights, of water, phobias. We're going to get people who think they're better than other people. We're going to get people that are introverted, that think they've got no confidence, no self-belief, you know, and it's, people say, and it's not about the course. I could have the same course for 20 seasons in a row, but it's the recruits, the contestants that make the show, because with the different personalities, different fears, phobias, different ways of thinking, that show will be completely different every single time. So this is what I say to people. Hopefully you've watched the show and you know what you're getting yourself into, because I'm stripping you down as an individual through activities, through, you know, psychological tests. I'm stripping you down, and guess what I'm going to do? Once you're down to your bare bones, before I start to rebuild you, I'm going to put you in front of a mirror. I'm going to go, this is you. And this is why a lot of people go, they don't like what they see. They give me their number. They're so used to wearing their masks, their makeup, their body armor before they leave the house, that it's molded into their skin. It's become part of them. And you rip at it, and they detest what they see, because they spent years and years and years to hide it. That's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why people think that, you know, even production companies think that I'm hard work to work with. And I'm like, no, I need to run through this process this is a show that I've created, that I've written. I haven't got any of the format, because I didn't know nothing about formats of IP back then. Yeah. Right? But leave me to the first 3 series, ran it, full control into myself, and then the narrative starts to come in. Right, we need so many women or men, so we need this colour, we need that, you know, that. And then you lose the authenticity of the show, and then, you know, it's ruined.
Talk to me about the people after the show, the kind of relationships or what you learn about their journey after, because they come away from it with a life-changing experience, and probably are able to go on and make decisions that they'd been sat on for a long time before.
Yeah, no, you're making me smile, because it's so true. And this is the effect. You know, if you went to every single recruit, you might get out of the 15 seasons, 20 seasons, I don't know how many I've done. I doubt you'll get one person that will say, oh, Ant's an arsehole, or Ant's, you know, because I've had an effect on their life, and they knew it was real. They knew that, you know, I was there with them. And I don't have anything to do with the recruits after, really, because I get so attached in that moment. After the 2-week process, you know, if you touch one of my recruits, if a cameraman accidentally bumps into them, if you know, they're like my children. You know, I've put them through this process. They've allowed me to get into them, and especially by the back end of the course, we've been doing the rebuilding. And I'm like, do you realise you got this tool? Use it. I've identified that. Here you go. Self-belief kicks in the back end. You know, when self-belief kicks in the back end, there's not much that will phase you. I'm not saying you'll achieve everything you set out to do, but there's not much you won't commit to, that's all you want, is a commitment phase in life. Commit. When you commit, guess what? You're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to become a better version of yourself.
How does it feel just through that show alone to know the impact you've had on those people's lives for the better? How does that actually feel as a human being?
Do you know what I always say? I don't change people's lives. That's down to them. And that takes courage to change your life. But I like to think that I change people for the better. I change you for the better in order for you to then make a decision to change your life. That's down to you. So, but why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't you want to pass on the only thing that we can really pass on in life, and that's the best version of who you are, your life experiences, if you can help someone, you know, become a better version of themselves, even if it's by 0.01%, then why wouldn't you do that? Why would you keep it to yourself? Why would you do it? It doesn't make sense to me.
You go through so many people over the course of all of those series, but those people will never, ever forget you. Ever.
Yeah, I don't, you know, I'm very good at just, you know, doing my job, doing it to the best of my ability. And I know, because you know, at the end of the course, I'm emotionally and psychologically drained, not physically as much, but well, actually physically now, because as I'm getting older, the recruits are getting younger. So, but I don't think of it, I don't ever gloat on it or think about that.
It must make you proud.
When I look at them, when I see some of them, and they're smashing life, and I mean, smashing through life, especially some of the younger ones that have come through. And there's a few, I'd say a handful that I always keep an eye on, that I'm extremely proud of. I look at them and I just think to myself, and I know that I've had an impact on their life, but as soon as that course is done, I've cut off any communication. Yeah. And it's not because, but I can't be there to mentor you. Hopefully I've identified something within you, and that's, you're using that to your advantage. But I do that with everything. When I do a job or I've achieved something big, I don't gloat on it. It's only recently that I've put on my Instagram, and it's through someone sort of saying, "Ant, why haven't you put that you've recreated the Mutiny and Extreme Everest? Why haven't you put that you've scaled Everest and you've climbed K2 and that you're in the special forces, for years?" And since probably 6 months ago, my thing was just like TV guy. It's like people are like, "Why don't you?" I said, "Because I've been there and I've done it. I take the experience from it. If I can share that experience, and which I like to do with my tours and through my books, then that's something that people can pick up. And if they want to read it, they can read it. If they don't want to, they don't have to. If they want to come to one of my tours and I talk about, scaling Everest or K2, then I'll do that in that moment. But, I've got so much more to write. I don't rest on my laurels. I don't rest. I've climbed the highest mountain in the world. I know people that, milk that, and fair play to them, each their own. But I'm constantly rewriting my story because I want to be known for who I am, not who I was. And
why?
Because I've got children. I want my children to know me for who I am until the day that I'm not here. And that will hopefully change as the years go by, right? Because change is good. Change, promotes growth, and if I can grow as an individual.
Think about that. I want them to understand who I am, not what.
Yeah, I want them to know me for who I am, present, and in this moment, which will change hopefully in 10 years' time. Right now, I'll probably be the adventurer dad. Then in 10 years' time, I might be
my age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's still not.
But I might be the dad that that they come to for a bit of wisdom or a bit of knowledge, rather than to climb a mountain or to play or to whatever it may be. I want to keep. I don't want to just be that one-stop shop. It's like when I'm soldering. Soldering wasn't my belonging. I just happened to be extremely good at what I'd done, and I couldn't be any more far detached from a soldier right now. If I never picked up a weapon again, I'd be happy. People, "Hey, come paintballing with me." I'm like, no. I went on a trip recently to Romania. Like, come to the firing range, and we're gonna have a day at the firing range. I'm like, what else is there here? Oh, there's a salt mine. Take me to the salt mine. No, well, there's all sorts. So I don't want to fire a weapon. Let me go to a salt mine. I want to look at the salt mine. I want to see what's there. I've never been to a salt mine. Yeah. It's that change that creates growth within yourself. And I always say to my children and to people that I meet, if I can leave you the best version of myself today, then that's great, right? But that best version of myself today might not be good enough in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time. I'm going to need to be better. And if you're going to be a constant in my life, if you're going to be present in my life.
Yeah.
And that's what I look at with my children. I don't want to be known just as that soldier dad, and then it's like, all right, does that make sense?
Yeah. You have a look back though and seeing that you're not just a soldier dad.
Yeah.
You've done more than most people fit into a lifetime.
No, absolutely.
I want to do more. It's like, when will you settle? Do you think Rishi Sunak announced last week that people should be, what's it called when you...
National service. No, I think it's the worst idea ever. I think that discipline and structure and resilience should be embedded into schools. You talk about them, doing a year. So why don't you, from secondary school, implement the first hour of every day implement like some team building structures, some resilience training, some mindset training, some discipline training, respect. That be the first. Someone asked me this question, that being the first lesson of the day. You go into school straight away, you sit down at a desk, where's the oomph, where's the drive, and you're listening to a teacher. First lesson, it should be teacher led, of course, but this kids should be able to sort things out for the day. Almost having a portal where they have to rely on each other for the first hour. Right, what's happening today? What are the tests happening? Right, actually, we're going to do an assault course today. This is what we're going to do. We need to work together. If not, we can't get to the solution. Respect. Right, I need to respect you in order for us to achieve this outcome. If we don't all chip in together, we're not going to unlock the next phase of this of this task.
But don't you think teachers, if they heard this right now, would say, well, we do teach that?
Well, they don't. No, because they don't. It's like they get into the class and they have to sit still. But it's that first hour of the day, I think, is so important for children, and it needs to be. They need to be stimulated. They need to be active, and they need to be stimulated together. So they're all relying on each other. They're all picking up. And then they can go into. Then they're awake, right? Because what do kids do? They drag themselves out of bed. Parents are screaming and shouting at them. They chuck them in the car. It's a negative experience when they start school. That's what I always say to parents as well. I said, I don't care how you feel. Your responsibility as a parent, okay, whether you you don't feel in the mood or whether you feel sad, is to be positive during that school run. It requires 1 hour of your day. I said it will work miracles on yourself once you start doing it. I said, my kids wake up, I don't start screaming and shouting. I wake them up a little bit earlier if I have to. Discipline. I go back to being disciplined. I wake them up so they're fully awake. Breakfast, whatever. I'll have a little bit of fun with them. In the car on the way to school, I'll play some music. I'll ask them silly questions. I know exactly what I'm doing, but now it's part. I love doing the school run, and the kids go to school, positive or more positive than. If you're screaming and shouting at them, they're putting the school bag, they're eating their toast in the car. And again, it happens, right? And then you chuck them off to school to go and sit at a desk. There's that, there's that sort of negative sort of mindset straight away.
There's no gratitude.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I would say that rather than doing a years of, I should also implement a discipline. And when I mention the word discipline, it sounds so brutal nowadays, but when I mean discipline, it's being self-sufficient, being disciplined enough to put your own school clothes on to get to school, check each other off, make sure everyone's right for within that first lesson before you start school, everyone's looking smart, everyone's happy, everyone's and there's just ways of doing it. And if you do that throughout the whole of secondary school and then through their A levels, then they're going to have a discipline, a military discipline about them anyway, but it's just about how you implement it.
You see this in Japanese schools where the kids have to clean the classrooms.
Right. Okay.
So in the Japanese schools, the kids have to clean up after lunch. They have to clean the classroom at the end of the day. They have to clean the toilets, and it's just like there's no cleaners at the school. The kids clean the school.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. And see, that's brilliant, right? Because they have to rely on each other. Yeah. The quicker they rely on each other, or the more people that chip in, the quicker they get the task done, right? Yeah. It's not just a set hour from hour to hour, waiting for the bell to ring, and you go, oh yeah, next class, next class. It's actually installing some discipline into them.
Look, I want to talk about a couple of other subjects here, and I'm conscious of time, but you've written a load of books.
Yeah.
You're by your own admission, you're no bookworm, you're no writer by your own admission. You say that very openly on the audiobooks that I listen to. And how confident you were going into do your first audiobook, thinking it would take you smash it out.
I still have nightmares.
You booked the studio for 2 days. You said you'd smash it out in 24 hours. Oh, well, the first day, and then it took you 5 days.
5 days.
And that was learning a whole new skill, I suppose, at the end of the day. And I made a documentary recently, and Sophia, the producer, she gave me a script. Mm-hmm. And she's like, we're going to go in the studio, and this is the voiceover you're going to do and you're going to narrate this. And I'm like... you know.
Yeah.
So when you said, I was like, I get that, because I was like, easy peasy. And so I read the first, I don't know, paragraph, sentence, whatever it was. And Sophia and Steve, who were in the room with me, Steve's like, can you just change your breathing, please?
Yeah.
And I was like,
articulate.
I was like, what do you mean change my breathing? I just breathe.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah.
like-
I'm just talking. What do
he's
you
like,
want?
yeah, but you go,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, so all little stuff like that. And so I had to learn this skill.
Because you're overanalyzing. This is what I'm talking about, right? When I say when you overanalyze and overthink, it's because all of a sudden you've got a task in front of you, you know, and you've probably revised that script a little bit, and you've gone over it a few times, you've read it out loud, but then you're ultimately thinking about something that's really, really simple. So you overanalyze, and then you overcompensate, and then you start thinking about my breathing, and then you don't articulate. You know, we're so lazy as just putting sentences together or missing words. And then when you have to articulate a sentence, you sound like a right idiot, because you're just like, I don't speak like this. You know, it's just about, that's the correct vocabulary. It's the correct way to speak. And this is what it's fascinating, because we all do it. It's when you overthink and overanalyze, and then all you're doing is speaking, and your breathing is like, why are you breathing differently to when you speak to me? When you're speaking to me now, is because your mind's like, do you know? That's what I say. That's what I always say. You know, when you're left with one option in life, sometimes when it's presented to you there and then, you tackle it because you have to. You have to, how you would naturally do it. You don't overanalyze. You just do right the Spence way.
Yeah.
You know, and you get through it, right? And this is just another example of what, because I went in there thinking, yeah, no worries, and I'm just like, and again, all of this came up. The breathing was horrendous, because I was like, and then I said, but it's funny you mentioned it, because it's so true, mate.
And the mic thing as well, too close, too hard.
Yeah,
It's like, for goodness sake, I'm not moving the way you are.
It's a nightmare, but again, you know, you live and learn, and
yeah, absolutely. But anyway, look, you wrote a lot of books. And many of them I've consumed, and I really resonate with the way that you talk, because to me you talk. I feel that when I'm listening to you, you're talking to me at my level, and my level of understanding, my level of intellect. It's kind of like that. He's a normal guy. And I think that's great, because I think some people aren't able to do that. So that's a gift that you've got, or a talent you've created. I don't know. But when I consume your books and I learn from them, I look at society, and I look at people in the workplace, and I wonder why so many people are just enoughers. Mm-hmm. So many people get up every day and go to work to do a job that they don't love, just for the money to pay the mortgage, and sit there spending 7 or 8 hours of the day, whatever it is, plus the drive to and from work to do something they don't love. And when I think about that, I'm like, what is it that can get people to change? What is it that can get people to realize that kind of cycle that they're in, or state that they're in, where they're just going through the motions, existing with life, but not living life?
It's the norm. It's because it's the norm. It's been drilled in you from day dot, that is how you live your life. And when I talk about us being so moldable, and children being so moldable at such a young age, it's the norm to do that. It's the norm to live for the weekends. It's the norm to do your 9 to 5 to pay your bills. You look around you, it's everywhere. There's no detachment from it. There's not enough.
It's almost a pandemic of normality.
Mate, exactly that. It's a pandemic of normality, and there's not enough unnorm for you to look at and go, oh, that seems like where I want to go, or that seems pretty exciting or pretty unnormal, but it might be normal to you. But you've been so indoctrinated and so molded in a way that the norm is comfortable. This is what everyone does. Why aren't you doing it? Actually, you're a bit strange. You're a bit weird, because you're not conforming, or you're not playing to the rules, or
why aren't you coming to the pub on a Friday night? That's what we all do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like that in the military. Now, why aren't you out every weekend, fighting and drinking? It's like, and then you become part of it, and then unless you're honest enough with yourself. This is what I always say to people: be honest with yourself, which takes courage. That's true courage. When people ask me about bravery and courage, I say, being honest with yourself. Because when you're honest with yourself, the problem lies right in front of you. You know what you need to do. You know, it's, again, your body is ringing true to itself. It's working in harmony. It's like, wow, I know I need to do it. But then you look around, who do I look to? Who do I go to? You know, these unnormal people that are succeeding, that are doing their own thing. You know, that's so far out of my reach that, you know, I'm not worthy. It's one of those. You look around, you go, I can't.
It's all right,
I couldn't do that. Yeah, it's all right. I couldn't do it. And unless you're honest with yourself again and courageous enough to go right to implement what you actually want and what you feel, then you're always going to be in that norm. But people love that. You know, people rely on the system. People are quite happy to run through that. There's not enough people out there like us, I suppose, who go, no, do you know what? I'll create my own norm. You know, for me, the 9 to 5, the norm is not the norm. You know, and I've always said to my family as well, to my wife, sometimes she said to me, why can't you just lead a normal life? And this was years ago, about 2-3 years ago. It's your time to lead a normal life. And I said, we're not normal. That's what I said to her. And then you can see her eyes. I said, the moment you realise that we are not a normal family, I said, you'll stop asking these questions. You'll stop thinking like the normal family. And she said that, and she doesn't really listen to me, but she said that was a life-changing comment that I said to her when I said to her, we are not a normal family. Get that into your head, and then you'll start to think differently.
What makes you so driven, so focused, so committed? What makes you this different person? And how could somebody take what you've got, okay, rub it on themselves a little bit and get some of that? What do they need to do? Give us some life lessons here, because I think that a lot of the time we talk about this kind of stuff, but people then go into that phase of, well, where do I even start?
I'm not scared to fail. Failure is not a dirty word for me. You know, a lot of people, they don't do stuff because they're scared to fail, therefore they think they're a failure. Right? They're scared of fear of failure, fear of what other people will think about them. Why we've got this, it fascinates me. It stuns me that you are worried about what people you don't even know. You're worried about what they're going to think about you, how you're going to be perceived, and I don't have that. So when I talk about, you know, sometimes being desensitized to my fear of failure doesn't exist. So therefore, what do? I commit a lot more to things that people wouldn't commit to. I look at stuff and I know I'm going to fail it, but it's the commitment phase that's so important, right? Because you'll commit. Oh, right, okay, I might leave that for a couple of months. You'll commit again because something will come up. You'll find a way through or around it, and you'll finally flip that failure into a success. And that's what I love doing, flipping a negative into a positive.
Why? Because
the reward for it is, and not reward externally, the inner reward for that is something that you can only gift yourself. Once you commit to something and you flip a failure,
it's like a little yes inside of you.
Once you flip a failure into a success or a negative into a positive, the I can do attitude kicks in. I am capable of, right? And then when you start to realize what you're capable of, self-belief kicks in the back end, right? And self-belief is a gift you can only gift yourself through commitment. Because people can say all they want, oh, I believe in you. But if you don't believe in yourself, they're just empty words. And your parents will tell you that all the time, the people around you, I believe in you. But if you don't believe in yourself, like I said, empty words, they fall into the void. But the more you commit and the more you flip these negatives into a positive, you start to realize it's possible. You go, that's possible. I can do. I am capable of. Wow, I didn't realize I was capable of that. I just done that. I didn't think I would summit Mount Everest, but I just self-belief. And when self-belief kicks in the back end, and there's not much you won't commit to, which is ultimately what life is all about. Life is a series of commitments and you never get to your final destination. You will never get to your final, because there's only one final destination. And people are too worried about man-made or synthetic destinations that don't mean anything. It might be the title that you made for yourself or that they've made, that they don't mean anything to me. I'll build my own titles for myself. And as long as I can go on a journey where I'm becoming a better version of myself, knowing that I will never ever be the best version of myself, the polished version of who I am, because that's perfection and that doesn't exist. But progression does. So I constantly want to better myself, knowing that I'll never get there. So chasing that carrot for me is fascinating. So I'm constantly chasing that carrot of becoming the best version of who I am, knowing that I'll never get there. I find that a fascinating journey to be on, because I know that I'll never get there, but I know I'm getting closer and closer and closer each day, each week, each year. And that's what really, really drives me on. And it's the fear of, it's not having the fear of failure, not having the fear of what other people think, fear of missing out, FOMO. It's just like, I'm so focused on how I operate and how I work best along with my family, and how I can give them the best version of myself, that the external stuff really doesn't bother me. They're just wins or loses in life. People talk about failure and success. I'm like, failures, you're going to fail up to now in your life, and you're going to fail to the day you die. That's a fact. Why are you scared of it? It's like it's a fact, just like you're breathing right now, that you're going to do that. Whether it's a small failure, whether it's a big failure, you're going to fail all your life. So why do we turn that against ourselves and go, right, and I'm going to fail, I'm not going to. That's what I say to people. The moment you can get rid of the fear of failure and just commit, because there's no destination in life. You make up your own destination. You might commit to something. This might be the outcome. You might commit to something. You might get sidetracked. I get it all the time. I don't know whether it's my ADHD or no, I'm joking. But I get sidetracked, and then I've got a new goal. I go, wow, actually, I'm going to surpass this, what I set out to do, because I've realised that I can get to this goal that's just come up during this journey. Yeah. It hasn't come up before. It's come up during the journey, through this journey of commitment. So now I'm here, and I'm like, wow. And I go with the flow, right? And even if I don't make it to there, then I'll probably make my way back and try to side cut into this opportunity to see if I can achieve this. But
there's almost, as I watch you though, there's almost this kind of like this boyish excitement that comes from the challenge of that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
the challenge of life.
Yeah, right. It's seeking. Yeah, you know, and by seeking, you seek failure by default anyway.
Absolutely, of course you do. But it's that, you're right. It's the challenge. I challenge absolutely everything in life until the last moment, until I either get there or I don't. And I challenge everything, because it keeps me stimulated, it keeps my mind active, it keeps me engaged. And whether it's negative or positive, and this is what I say to people, I tackle everything with a positive mindset. I always see the best outcome, I always see the reward, I always see, you know, the small destination or the small achievement I want to get. I see it in my hands, I hold it in my head. I don't think of it anything negative along the way. If it comes up, like I said, I'll tackle it there and then. And when you look at things through a positive lens in life and positive things happen, you're on cloud 9, because it's a positive on a positive. So it's like, I live not in the clouds in cuckoo land, but I'm like here, right? And then if I look at life through a positive lens and I tackle a negative situation, no matter what, I'm going to find a positive within that negative situation. I look at my father's death. People go, how can you find a positive in your father's death? That man made me self-reflect at the age of 5. Now that I see life through a positive lens, I can go back in time and go, that was the positive that I missed, because I looked at life through a negative lens. Mm-hmm. So guess what? You're going to see all the negatives. Mm-hmm. So it's a win-win. So why wouldn't you tackle life through a positive? Why wouldn't you look at life through a positive lens? Because if you've got a negative mindset and you tackle a negative situation, yeah, I've done it for years with my father. Negative mindset, anger, aggression, why this victim mentality, negative situation, the passing of my dad. Of course, it ended up in a hole every single time. Negative on a negative. Guess what you're going to get? You're going to get a negative outcome. You're going to get a negative solution. It wasn't until I started breaking things down and going, right, negative situation, positive mindset. Negative. That's how I train my mind. Negative person, positive mindset.
Do that again. Do that.
So I used to break everything down. And this is how I flipped my negative default mindset into a positive one.
Yeah.
Situation used to happen. I used to break it down. Is it good, bad, right, wrong, yes, no, negative, positive. Right, it's negative. Right, I'm going to have to tackle it with a negative. I'm going to have to tackle it with a positive mindset. If I want this negative to flip into a positive, I'm going to have to dig deep into this negative situation, which that's where the hard work starts. That's where, you're going to come across a lot of stuff that you don't want to see. But as long as you keep going and you keep digging and digging and digging and digging and digging, and there'll be a glimmer of hope. You'll find a small ounce of positivity. That's all I'm looking for. I'm looking for the grain of sand on the beach, right? But that's a challenge to me. Boom, boom, because I know the reward once I find that grain of sand and I implement that here, bosh, in my head. Self-belief, I've done that. Wow. Talk about feeling good, talk about self-worth, talk about self-belief. And as I mentioned, self-belief, because it's such a powerful, powerful tool that only you can gift yourself. Do not look to others, do not look to any. You have to do that through committing. So that's my joy in life. That's what I love doing. And that's what negative people, again, I try and flip them into, and if I don't, I won't waste my energy.
Who inspires you?
Do you know what? I get inspiration from people in all walks of life. There's not one person that I look to and I go, do you know what? I'm inspired by that person. I grab percentages of inspiration from everyone, whether it's a 0.02% from someone. I go, I like the way they dealt with that situation there. Boom, I put it in my armory, but to become a better version of who I am. I never try and be other people, because you only fit 100% into your skin. And if you can feel that 100% warts and everything, that's the best version of who you are at that moment. So I gain inspiration off people, and this is why I'm fascinated with people. I'm fascinated with the way we act. I'm fascinated by the way we think. I'm fascinated by the way that we do. I'm fascinated by the way we're indoctrinated, the way that we're molded, the way that we're trained through society. Because
you have an innate curiosity.
Yeah, I suppose so.
That's what it is. I see. It's like you're just really curious.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Why does somebody think like that? Why do they behave like? It's like, and it's like the surface answer that you get. It doesn't. It's not enough to. It doesn't serve you.
No,
it's like you've got to go further. Yeah,
I've got to prove it through the physical element, I suppose. But
then you do something that I've never seen anybody do. So you have this innate curiosity. You're digging to find out more. Okay, but then you want to change it.
Yeah.
Or you want to help that change.
Yeah.
Then you don't stop at finding out that the guy's on the bones of his arse is suffering with depression and XYZ might have happened to him. It's like instinctively to you, it's like fix.
Yeah, fix.
Yeah. How do I
help?
Help. Fix.
Yeah.
How do I make that? And that's really unusual.
Yeah.
And that clearly comes through in the work that you've done on the TV show, so people can see that. But as I'm talking to you, it's like I want your nonverbal communication with me. It's just like, it's that part about you that is why you're so focused on humanity.
It is humanity. You hit the nail on the head there. It's humanity. And that's what humanity is all about, is helping each other. Because all we have is each other.
It's seeing suffering, okay? There's an obvious suffering in the world of people that live in third world countries or in famine and stuff like that. That's one part of suffering which we can all observe very easily. But there's another form of suffering which people suffer, okay? And they suffer without you being able to obviously see it. And that suffering you identify.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that may have come from, the Lord above or wherever it might be, because that's a really hard skill to have. You care about people.
Yeah, I do, yeah. That's one thing that I do.
I never knew I was going to get that out of this conversation. but it's interesting learning that you're that kind of guy. You really care.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And you look at the situation, you look at the pandemic, really, when they took everything from us. All we had was each other. And I went through a moment, a life lesson, when I done Mutiny on the Bounty. Recreated Mutiny on the Bounty from 1789, and we had all the same replica boats, crew, etc., etc. And we went onto an island called Vanuatu, and it was halfway between the trip. It was probably, I would say, a good 30 days into the trip. We've lost some serious weight. We've got no food on the boat. We've got no water. We go into Vanuatu, honestly, on the bones of our ass. Me and my crew, I'm the captain, so remember going on and getting in with the locals. The locals came out and they were quite aggressive at first on their boats. What are you doing here? And they looked around and they saw, and one of the doctor was literally lying down. His face was all withdrawn. He was seriously dehydrated. I said, we've come to stay on the island if possible, because it's one of the islands that Bly that went on. So we wanted to, retrace the journey. And I had a little bit of rum, and we had exactly what Bly and his men had. We had ship's biscuits, salted pork, and some rum, which was the part of the rations that they had. 330 calories a day we had. And you could see, I gave him a tot of rum, and he went, yeah, come on. And he gave us this little part of the island. And we stayed there for 5 days. And we ate fruit, and, we didn't have a feast, but we replenished, got some water. And after 5 days, we were like, right, we're good to go on this next journey. We had probably, I think there's another 14 days at sea before we hit the next island, or 15, however long it took us. And before I left, the chief of the island made me an honorary chief of Vanuatu. He gave me the shield, and he gave me and I said, thank you to him. I said, thank you. And he started crying. He broke down, and he put his head on my shoulder. He said, no, thank you. And I was like, no, thank you. And I thought he's just repeating. He said, no. He grabbed my face. He went, thank you. I said, why are you thanking me? He said, because you've restored my faith in humanity. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He says, we have billionaires, millionaires come to this island wanting to buy up everything, wanting just to throw money at us and buy up everything. They've got everything. He said, you come on to this island with nothing, absolutely nothing. And you come on, you use what we have, you rely on us, we rely on you. And you've just shown that, we need each other. Now we're here, you've given it, you can give us, you didn't offer us any money, but we've wanted to help you. We could see that you were suffering. We could see that you were in pain. And I just wanted to thank you because you reinstalled our faith in humanity. Wow. And I thought to myself, that just hit me, blew my mind. It helped me because for the next 4 or 5 days on the boat, all I could think was his words. And I thought, he said, he said, with the rich, we don't want your money. You can't have this land. It's not for sale. He said, but you come on with absolutely nothing. And you give us, you've given us joy. You've given us happiness. You show that, all that we have is each other and the land that we live off. That's all we need.
It's like, don't ever take away somebody's great privilege of being kind or doing something for you.
Yeah, that's what it was, right? We had nothing to offer him, nothing at all.
But it was a great honour for them to be able to try and help.
Great honour. He's crying on my shoulder. Because we were leaving. He didn't want us to leave. And I thought they can't wait to get rid of us. We're eating their fruits. We've taken we've built shelter. We've taken their shelter, and he was just, and it was true. I felt the energy on me. Felt his tears, and I was like, they're real.
That feeling that guy had is in somewhat the feeling that you are able to have because of the things you do for people and what you deliver to help people change their lives. You played it down earlier. I just give them the tools. Bollocks. You don't. There's a great sense of pride that you must take from that.
Yeah, there is. But I think the moment, you see yourself above people is the moment you lose yourself. It's like I never go out thinking that I'm someone. Because, the moment you do that, then you lose who you are.
Then we won't go into the night in Duke's nightclub now.
Yes, do it. That's for another podcast.
And thank you so much for coming to join us today on the show. It's been an absolute privilege.
Spence, you're a gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.